Okay, so I just recorded a very nice 20-minute video comparing the Aguilar Tonehammer Bass DI to the JHS color box, but I went to review the video and none of the audio was working, so that was pretty disappointing. Such is the plight of this industry. So I'm just going to talk about what I found instead because I wanted to make something. Okay, so there's two pedals, the JHS color box and the Aguilar Tonehammer, and I'll show them to you here. Big pop, big noise. Okay, so here's the color box. It looks like this. And it's a very nice pedal. It's basically a Neve 1073 clone. If you don't know what the Neve 1073 is, the 1073 is a preamp designed by Rupert Neve, and it's been used extensively over the last few decades. I think maybe one of the more famous, there's a Neve console in Electric Lady Studios, there's one in Sonic Ranch. The Neve console I'm most familiar with is at Sound City Studios in Van Nuys, California. That's where a lot of the Tom Petty Heartbreakers records were cut. I think Nirvana made Nevermind there. Rage Against the Machine tracked there. It's just a very historic studio with some of my favorite records. So I love the sound of those albums. And a lot of those microphones, all those microphones went through a Neve preamp. And so Josh over at JHS has built this very nice color box, and it looks like this. This is the 2024 limited edition in the classic Neve colors, the gray, red, and blue. It has Lundahl transformers in it. And this thing just sounds great. I've used a couple preamps over the years, and this color box is the first one that really sounds like studio bass without me having to buy like tube preamps. When I track at recording studios, oftentimes I'm going through a tube pre, and they just sound so good. And one thing I like about them is the harmonic character of like the mid range and the high end frequency, and I feel like this does that very well. So I was gonna go buy a ready DI box, and I think now I'm not going to. I'm just gonna play this. So that's very exciting. I think this thing sounds great. It does crystal clean sound very well. It does really overdriven sound very well. If you just turn up this step knob, it's got 5 notches. 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. I think for bass, 2 and 3 sound great. I really like this thing. Another pedal that I've played a lot over the last year is the Tonehammer. Over the last 6 months, I should say, the Aguilar Tonehammer. And let's see if I can show this to you here. I'm gonna regret this. I'm gonna rip it off this board. There we go. It looks like this. This is a killer pedal. I played this for the last 5 months on my cruise ship gig. Was on the Norwegian Breakaway and was playing Burn the Floor there. And I used this silent stage, bass in, DI out. I gave front of house my post EQ, so I had my sound. And then I just run it flat. I run it like this, with everything flat, just straight up, and the AGS circuit not turned on. I don't use it. And it sounds really good. Sometimes I would turn the gain down from noon. I would turn it down to here, to like 10 o'clock. And that's about the only adjustment I would make. Maybe turn the bass up 1 or 2 dB if I needed a little more low end, or if the front of house said, hey, I need more low end. But otherwise, that's about it. And that pedal sounds great. It has a bit of a high end shelf. So a lot of your string noise gets kind of rolled off. Um, and that's nice for a situation where you're playing an ampless stage and your bass is just going straight through a PA system. Some of those hanging arrays, some of these PAs have a lot of, um, they can just like amplify too much string noise. And I don't like that. And your front of house guy isn't always in a position to really EQ the bass. So I like to just be able to take care of it. If I know that if I plug into my tone hammer, it's going to sound good. The big difference to me between these two pedals is like the harmonic characteristic in the top end, which is like such a finicky thing to kind of talk about. And in my recording that I made here, which you can't hear because there's no audio, you'd see that you couldn't really hear that big of a difference between them. I think a lot of it is how the instrument responds in your hands. And this is the point I want to get to here, is that when you're trying to find gear to purchase next, and you turn to YouTube and you start watching gear reviews, a lot of times it's hard to tell like how they really sound, because guys will just use them at their extremes. And that's fine, but I think that you really have to play them to understand how they feel in your hand. Because to me, the difference between the tone hammer and the color box, the difference between this and this is really how they feel in my hands, how they respond to the instrument. And that doesn't really translate through a record or through YouTube, especially after, I track it in Logic, I try and get it to sound good, but then YouTube's going to compress it, and you lose a lot of that information that I'm feeling gets lost when YouTube compresses it. So you really just have to play this stuff, and you have to play it a lot, and something might sound good with one instrument and not another. For example, I have this tone hammer pedal. I also have a tone hammer, just like the amplifier. It's right here. It's plugged in. I can't pick it up. But trust me, there's a tone hammer right there. And they sound the same. They sound the same. But I think the tone hammer sounds great with a precision bass. It sounds great with a P bass. I don't think it sounds as good with my Stingray. I don't think the Stingray sounds as good through the tone hammer. I think it's the wrong tool for the job. The pairing between this bass and that amp is not for me. It's not my favorite thing. I like a more transparent sound for the Stingray. But for the P bass, man, that's the sound. Tone hammer, P bass, tone hammer. It sounds like a Motown record. It just sounds so good. Turn the drive up a little bit. It sounds great. So that's kind of where my head's at today after playing some of this gear a lot. Just go buy something and play the heck out of it. Play it for 6 months to a year. And then get a feel for it. And then if you like it, keep it. Great. That's your sound, man. That's how you develop a sound, is play one piece of gear for a long time. If you don't like it, go try something else. And then play it a lot and see how they compare. And this takes years to do, but this is how you figure out what amps you like. This is how you figure out what kind of strings you like, what kind of instrument you like. You have to play the heck out of them, because it's the only way to know. When I get a new bass, which is very rarely, I don't always like it initially because I'm not used to it. You know, I played a Fender jazz bass and then a Fender precision bass for a long time. That right there was 10 years. And then I switched to Stingray, and it took me like 3 to 5 months to get used to the way it felt in my hands. And now it's like an extension of my body because I'm so used to it. And when I go back to a Fender, the Fender feels clunky. And it's not the bass's fault. It's just like where my I'm at. And so it takes some getting used to. So don't be afraid to spend a lot of time with this stuff and really get to know it the same way you might with a record, you know. So that's where I'm at. I think that the JHS color box is a great preamp pedal. It sounds killer with bass. It sounds great with guitar and vocals. If you're looking for something for your silent stage setup, maybe you're a church musician, maybe you work on cruise ships like me, um, give it a shot. It's like $500. It's pretty affordable, um, and I don't think you'll be disappointed. Anyway, that's what I got. Let me know what you think if you've played any of these pieces of gear. I like to talk about these things, and yeah, peace. Thanks for listening.